Welcome everyone. My name is Tracey Slaven and I have the very great pleasure of introducing you to this fantastic mentoring event as part of the university's International Women's Day celebrations. I became a university secretary and chief operating officer in January last year, and this is an event really close to my heart. As a woman in a leadership role, a mum of 3 daughters, and someone who came from a widening access background, I understand just how important it is for us to support one another and just how difficult it can be to address the different expectations others place upon us and that we place on ourselves. Today's session brings together 5 women from very different backgrounds who are each playing their own part in breaking the bias, the theme for International Women's Day in 2022. They're all connected to the university or the city and following a proud tradition of advancing gender equality in Aberdeen. From the women who set up the Aberdeen Women's Suffrage Association in the 1870s, to fight for our right to vote, to those who pushed through the glass ceiling or broke the bias in their own workplaces, there's much to celebrate. International Women's Day also showcases the small role we can all play in seeking to eradicate gender inequality. This could be through feeling empowered to speak out, supporting colleagues, advocating for better mental health support, or just taking the time to look after our own well-being and being kind to ourselves. Sharing the journey and challenges faced by women is key to this, and so I'm delighted to be able to introduce you to our mentors, and I'll ask them to switch their cameras on now, and they're Martina Chukwuma-Ezike, Gillian Fowler, and Dr. Annapolium, Julia Leng, and Dr. Madhuri Thakur. They'll share their own stories, steps to career development, their top tips for career progression. And there'll also be an opportunity for you to ask questions and share points for discussion. Thank you for the panel for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us here today. And before we do those introductions, I'm just going to go over a couple of housekeeping rules. The Q&A function is there for you to put forward any questions you may have, and we will try to answer just as many of those as we can. But please also use the chat function to let us know where you're logging in from, or if you have any more general feedback, or indeed if you need help with something. We will endeavour to answer as many questions as possible during the event. We'd also really love to see your social media posts if you have anything to share. So please use the hashtag #BreakTheBias, IWD EBDN and IWD 2022. So I'm now going to hand over to the first of our fantastic mentors, and I'll go first to Jillian Fowler. Jillian, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello all, and thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this event. So just a brief background. I am a great believer in academia. I have studied several times for degrees, the first being publishing and then marketing as my career continued to progress. And I'm more than halfway through my current PhD. But that aside, there's also the corporate world, where I have predominantly worked in oil and gas as a marketing and communications manager. I'm a fellow and chartered marketer through the Chartered Institute of Marketing, and I'm a great believer in doing all you can to continue to grow personally and in your working life. But it's really important who your support network is. And that's male and female. I know this is International Women's Day, but I want to focus on you are influenced by those around you. And I have been very fortunate to have had incredible mentors, and I also mentor others as part of my journey. I've ran my own agency as well as businesses. I've set up a charity, and I'm also, on top of being a marketing communications manager, I'm an accredited transformation and mindset coach, an NLPer. Again, it's really important to me for helping others move forward. So I'm all about living life fully. Whatever comes in our way, there's always a solution to move forward. And I'm delighted to be part of this. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jillian. And I'm sure we'll come back with some questions on all of that very shortly. So let's move on to our second mentor. Anna, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Payo-Payo. I work at the School of Biological Sciences. I'm a research fellow. I started here 4 years ago as a postdoc, and then I was able to secure one of the research fellow positions. So I have just started my trip as an independent PI, which has been quite a big step, but I have managed to do so far. And probably one of the reasons why I have achieved that is because I have had really good mentors around me that have helped me get where I am. I'm originally from Spain, where I did my PhD and my academic career started, but I have also been involved in international networks of women in science, such as the Homeward Bound Network, that is a women leadership program that aims to enhance the influence that women have in the planet and aim to provide more sustainability and better management in the long run. I'm very happy to be here and happy to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Really exciting to see how, coming from all of our different backgrounds, we face and manage the problems and the challenges that come towards us. Let's move on and introduce Julia. Do you want to say a few words?
Hi everyone. Yes, thank you very much for having me here today. I'm very excited to hear from everyone. I've actually got a notepad and pen to take some notes. My name is Jillian Leng. I work here at the university as a careers advisor in the Careers and Employability Service. I started my job in 2019, which was the same year I left university. First, I was a graduate trainee, so I worked on CVs and a bit of marketing. And then over the pandemic, I became a careers advisor. In my role, I support arts, humanities and social science students, figuring out what they want to do, their next steps. I give advice and guidance and some information as well. So it's not quite mentoring, but I think it's potentially a similar vein and a lot of what we're talking about today, which is fantastic because I'm really passionate about people finding what's right for them and taking opportunities that are good for them. I definitely felt this when I was at university. I studied linguistics and I didn't really know what I wanted to do after university. Obviously, there was no sort of set career path. I was very keen to make the most of my opportunities. So I did a bit of publishing work experience. I did some working in events. I joined the Officer Training Corps, which is part of the British Army. So I got a bit of experience in that leadership style. And I did the BP student tutoring scheme to get some experience in teaching. And all of these things didn't really lead to me having a career path, but they really helped me to know what I did want to do or what I didn't want to do and actually who I was and what motivated me. I sort of fell into the job I'm in now. It was through the BP tutoring scheme. I decided to take the initiative, take the opportunity to give a presentation about my time on the scheme after having participated. And my now boss, Tracey, was in the crowd and she came up to me afterwards and asked me to apply for this job. So I always like to tell that story because it's just a notion of, putting yourself out there is where you get seen. People can hear from you, but if you're not out there, you might not get picked up. So it's definitely important to believe in yourself and push yourself, and also look to other people to help you because it can be very daunting, obviously very scary, to put yourself out there in that way. So if you are a university student, I would say definitely come and speak to us here at the Careers and Employability Service. If you're a prospective student or a graduate, you can also come and use the Careers and Employability Service at any point. We're very happy to chat, and I'm very pleased to be here today. So thank you for having me.
Thanks, Julia, and really appreciate with 3 daughters just finishing or still going through uni, just how important us making those connections at early stages in careers can be. Fantastic. Let's move on. And Madhuri, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and potentially start some of those conversations?
Thank you, Tracey. Hi, my name is Madhuri Thakur. Thank you for having me here. I really like to connect with young people. I like to connect with young minds. It really excites me. So this is a wonderful opportunity. I work as a specialist mentor mental health in the counseling department of the university. I've been living in Aberdeen for the last 17 years, but I'm originally from India. I did my graduation. I did my medical training, medicine in India, and then I got married and came here. I am here with my family, so my husband and my two sons, so three sons. So I'm here with them. So it's a busy family life, and uh, here, after coming here 17 years back, I pursued further education. I did masters in public health and I started working in the NHS. When I was working in NHS, I found that some people were finding it easier to make the right choices, bring the right changes in their life. When I was working on smoking cessation or Healthy Lives Matter, Active Scotland, projects like that. But some found it really difficult. And that made me think, like, why? How come some people can make the right choices? And that made me pursue further education or training into psychology. Then I also went on further and studied counseling and cognitive behavioral therapy. So medicine kind of helped me to treat people, to help them, and cognitive behavioral therapy taught me how to help people help themselves. And that's what I have been doing since. So I work in the university as a specialist mentor, where I work with students with various mental health conditions ranging from anxiety, depression, bipolar, personality disorders, up to schizophrenia or any other stronger conditions. And I also work with various neurodiversities. So we work with students who are on autistic spectrum, who are suffering from ADD, ADHD. And what we tend to do is our specialist mentoring sessions usually cover three aspects. One is mental health. So we speak about how they have been feeling, how they have been thinking, what has been going on in life. We also cover social side of things, because for young age group, social interactions make a huge impact on individuals' well-being. So we tap on their social side of things. And last but not the least, we also encourage them to reflect on their academic progress. We think of specific techniques for neurodiversity, and that's we monitor the progress, we make plans, we encourage to reflect. So that goes on in the specialist mentoring sessions. So I try to work with a whole person rather than a specific condition or the diagnosis. And I see students who are academically doing exceptionally well, but they feel they it's just luck, or they don't deserve it, or they're a fraud, which is typical imposter syndrome. Or I also work with students who procrastinate because they do not know any other way of dealing with anxiety except avoiding it. So we also see students who have past history of trauma. So of course there are challenges. Sometimes we don't see positive results in spite of all the efforts, and it's hard to switch off. But the positives that we get out of these mentoring sessions is way more than the negatives. So when I work with these students and when we make a difference, the gratification that we get is beyond measure. It's beyond measure. And I would say that's the best part of working in these professions. And all throughout my career, I have had mentors from medical field, from counseling field, and from other areas. Like I have a mentor who is a good mom, and I have learned how to be a good mom looking at her. So it has influenced me, and I would suggest to have mentors in all areas of your life. Sorry, I'm a bit over time, sorry, but thank you.
Don't worry about it at all. It's really interesting perspective. And I think what's particularly interesting, and I hope really powerful for those joining the conversation, is just the range of different approaches and how we should be thinking about different mentoring approaches to meet different needs that we might have. That'll change over time. And certainly, I think I could have done with a mentor when first dealing with being a mum. That would certainly have been of help. Conscious Martina's held up just a little bit as juggling all of the different aspects of her life, so we'll introduce her a little bit later. But what I'd like to do at this point is to do really just a quick poll, really interested in hearing from the audience as to whether you are currently using or perhaps have used a mentor in the past. So if you could just record your answer on screen, and then we'll have a look at what the room's telling us. Thank you. So we've got about 21 responses so far. There are a few more people to respond if my understanding of the numbers attending is right. But that's sort of suggesting about half of the people in the room have had a mentor, and about a third of those in the room would like to. So I think that's really, really positive in terms of the interest in mentoring and the way in which we might explore that space as to how we might find mentors and other things. So I think if we move on from the poll, and I've got a number of questions that I'm going to put to our mentors to start the conversation. But at this point, I'd really like to invite those in the audience to put forward any questions you might have. And as they come up, I'll draw those into the conversation as well. Okay, so starting with some easy ones, I think. And I think this might get a range of answers. What advice would you as a mentor give to someone planning their career path? And does it always go to plan? I'm not going to ask Julia this one because I think that's a bit too close to the day job. And so Gillian, would you like to come into that one first?
Yeah, sure. So if someone's planning their career path, I'd be asking, what exactly do you want from it? Not what the perception from others are, what people are maybe telling you to do, but why you wish to go down the path that you are. What makes you have that fire inside, that passion? Because ultimately, whatever you're going to do, you're going to spend a lot of time doing. So you need to be connected to it. And if you're not, then you're going to have obstacles. And you shouldn't do it just because other people are swaying you or persuading you to go down a path. So I'd be really asking, what's the reason? What do you hope to get from it? How do you see this working? And what's your deeper why as to why it's important to you? Is it always going to be straightforward? No, because it never is. And anything in our life, we're always going to have bumps. But then if you have a deep why, a real deep passion for something, you will still find a solution to move forward. And there's the difference. Because if you're not connected to it, it's like an obstacle and you'll stop and you just don't want to proceed. So we can always find ways forward if we want to. But yeah, I would say it's never going to be easy, that's straightforward, but just do what's true to you.
Thanks, Jillian, that's really powerful. I'm just wondering whether any of our other mentors have experience of sort of the bumps and twists and turns in sort of planning their career path. I know I didn't set out to be a university secretary. I'm not sure even when I was at university I knew what one was, if I'm absolutely honest. And I started on a program training to be a hotel manager. So it's not quite a direct route, but interested in any other reflections, perhaps from Anna or Madhuri?
Yeah, I can jump in. So one thing I would like to reflect on is that there are often people that don't know what they want to do, and when they are asked, what do you want to do, they don't know. And I think that's okay. When I started my career, I always saw people telling me, oh, I really want to be an academic. I have always known what I wanted to be. I didn't. What I did was to plan the next step, but not trying to look too much forward. Some people can do that because they know from the bottom of their heart that they want to be a doctor, a medical doctor all their life, and they have a very clear path. But other paths are also okay, and just getting to the next step might open the doors that show you which one is the next one. And just because people, so one thing that has happened to me, and this is probably me cherry picking, is that I'm very dispersed because it's my nature. I am dyslexic and I have several things that played against me. And when I was in school, I was told that I would never finish school. My mom was told that I should get a plan B because I was never going to finish school. I managed to do it because people supported me next to me, and I had the resources around that enabled me to do it. but I never knew that I wanted to be an academic, nor I knew I could be one. But that was not a barrier for me getting there, because I just took the next step. It was like I just made decisions at the next immediate level. So when I had to choose my degree, I open up the book of degrees, and then I start shuffling about and say, okay, this feels good enough. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's good enough. I'll try. If it doesn't work, I'll change. But if it works, I'll go to the next decision point and make the same process. So it's not that you have to have mapped out everything. It's just take one bite at a time.
Fantastic, thank you, Anna. I think Martina might have joined us now. Martina, are you in the room with us now? No? Okay. Well, we'll keep an eye out for her appearing as we go through this session. Moving on to some other questions. I was wondering if Madhuri would want to come in on some thoughts about impacts from the pandemic and what ideas you've developed to sort of help overcome some of the additional pressures and challenges that have come from that.
Absolutely. I think the pandemic had posed challenges for all of us. So I myself faced some challenges firsthand, and I also saw lots of students and other people who were facing these challenges. So challenges such as not being able to connect with other people, that was, I think, the biggest for me. And I think we saw lots of variations of that same challenge for lots and lots of other people as well. So what kind of helped me at that point, and what I did encourage lots of people, is to look after their well-being, and simple things like going out for small walks, not waiting for a perfect sunny day. Even if it's windy like this, still go out. So not waiting for perfection, looking for little pleasures, looking for little things to do. Learning new things is also something that kept us all alive. Like, we started doing these online events, we all learned it, and we didn't let the life stop us through. We just kind of always had our problem solving hat on. So keeping our problem solving hat on and looking at it as, oh, that's the end of it, rather than that, what can be done about it. So in the pandemic, simple things like keeping physically active, getting connected with people, and contributing to community in some way or the other gives us a good feeling about ourselves. So doing that has also helped lots of people. So these were some simple techniques. And the most important that I would again say is keeping connections, connecting with people. I think that were the main things. Thank you.
Thank you, Madhuri. That's really interesting, and that learning different things bit really resonates. I will resist if Anna attempts to test me on this, but I decided to start doing Spanish on Duolingo at the start of the pandemic, and I think I'm on something like day 750, which is just scary as to how long this has been going on. But I have managed to do my 5 minutes every day, so I can definitely, get a beer in a bar or find the train station. Not quite sure how much further I can go from that, though. Okay, well, really pleased that our new University Rector, Martina Chukwuma-Ezike, has managed to join us, and apologies for the technical difficulties, Martina. I was wondering whether you'd like to introduce yourself to the room and just give a little bit of background to your role as a mentor and some of the things that you're thinking about.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very delighted to be here. So as the new rector, obviously, I was never set out to be a rector. So I remember being a child, whenever I was asked, what do you want to do? I always said, I don't know. One, I don't like blood, so I can't be a doctor or a nurse. And secondly, I don't know if there's a career that embodies being able to help other people. So I couldn't just tell what I wanted to be. And then when I started university, I went to study sociology. And the reason I did that was, in my understanding, being a sociologist, you could work anywhere, hospital, businesses, care, anywhere you can, universities, you can fit yourself. So I sort of thought, okay, I could do that so that way I can maybe over time identify what I wanted to be or do. And then on my graduation day, I was asked, so what jobs would you be applying for? And I had no clue. I didn't know what to apply for. And then it happened that I needed to do a 1 year mandatory service. And I found myself being sent to an oil and gas company. I was scared because the company was very massive with everyone who seemed like they knew exactly what they were doing. And I was the only one they who had no clue. I was very confused. But then I was put in budget and planning, and I found out that although I didn't like numbers, but it wasn't just that difficult. I could learn. And within a few months, I started enjoying my role. And I grew very quickly in budget and planning, and I found out I was very good at organizing things, even though I wasn't a friend of huge numbers. So there and then, I found myself having a career in the oil and gas, which was interesting, and I was growing, and I needed to improve on that. And I thought the best way was further education, perhaps a master's in business administration would guide me to becoming a better manager. And so I found myself in Aberdeen in 2008. So coming to study was great, but before I made that journey, I had a life-changing asthma attack, that I narrowly survived. I'm grateful to be here today. And I came into the university with all plans, graduate, go back and continue your career in oil and gas. But within the 1 year I was in Aberdeen, that totally changed, and I found myself working in the charity sector. So from starting out knowing nothing, and then getting to the middle where I thought I had it all figured out, and then I had a dramatic career change from oil and gas to the third sector. But one thing I find in the midst of all this is just the ability to be able to do something. That thing within you to say, I can do this. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to know it all. But just that little willpower to say, I want to learn. I want to be committed to this. And again, today is about International Women's. It's about mentoring. So I found mentors who were there for me, people that whenever I was so confused, I would go to them for direction. And most of them were my lecturers within the university, within business school. They helped me on, and working in the third sector gave me an opportunity to help people with asthma. It can be very terrifying when you have a child and the child cannot breathe. And then you go to the hospital and you're just not having any leadway. You're back home and then you're back again. It's like a cycle. And then all it takes is for somebody to sit down with you and identify what is that thing that is making your son or your daughter go to the hospital. And within 40 minutes of intense conversation, you go back and that child's life is turned around like magic, but it's not. Basic information, basic awareness, basic education. So I find that very rewarding, mostly when a mom comes back to say, oh, Martina, it was just 40 minutes, but can you imagine that my child is back at school? Can you believe that for the past 3 weeks, we go to bed and sleep? We don't have to call the ambulance. All that trauma, all that confusion, all that lack of sleep, or you can't even plan, you can't even take a job as a mom because you're just surrounded by the life of your child. But all that is being changed and my life is back on track. For me, that is more than anything in the world. And doing the work that we do, in the charity that I work for, obviously resources are limited, so we depend on a lot of young people who would volunteer to give their time and their skills. And in doing so, I found myself automatically becoming a mentor and a career coach. And I have found that very rewarding. I mean, I have learned a lot from young people. They are great at telling you the truth. If you're messing around, they tell you exactly what they feel. And that's such a great thing because adults are very diplomatic, but children just tell you how it is. So I have found myself, though I have mentors, but I have become a mentor. And in getting so much involvement with mostly undergraduate within the university, when I saw an opportunity to present myself to work as a rector, I just took that on, and I'm very grateful and privileged to be in that role, supporting students, making sure that their concerns are not only heard, but possibly addressed so that we can give them a better future. So I think mentoring is great. We should all not be scared to ask for help. We don't all have it all figured out. But what counts is once we have the little determination to say we can do this, then we can get to something better that can make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Martina. And we're going to keep this conversation going. And thank you for that introduction. And I'm going to ask a question now, and I'm looking for an answer from all 5 of the mentors, and partly because I might steal one of the answers. So what I'm looking for is the one piece of advice that you've given that's been the most useful in your life, the one that you go back to, and the one that's had the most impact on you. So let's go to Julia first, I think.
Thank you, Tracey. So the best piece of advice I was ever given was given to me by the commanding officer at the University Officer Training Course. So he was a member of the British Army, and he said that you have your comfort zone and you actually have a little bit of leeway above your comfort zone, which is still the place where you will thrive. And any further than that, and it's too far, but there's a comfort zone and there's actually a little bit further on. So it's really important that you push the boundary of your comfort zone and then actually get into that sweet spot where actually you're really pushing yourself, not to the point of absolutely burnout. Of course, I do understand there's been a lot of that this past year, but it's always sort of get out your comfort zone and then you think you can go so far, but actually there's a little bit more than you can. And I think that I also take that with the motto of the Army, which is be the best, and it's about really pushing yourself just that little bit extra to try and really get the most out of every opportunity. So that's something I always try to take with me.
Fantastic, thanks, Julia. And Jillian, have you got one I could steal as well?
That's actually a really tough question because there's a few things that came to mind, and just like Julia is saying, it's like things we've learned from experience. One that I was told, though, this was like early days in the careers, if not now when, and it was just like a throwaway comment then, but it really stuck with me because it's easy to say, oh, I won't do it just now, I'll delay it, now's not the right time. Then suddenly a year goes past, 3 years goes past, so on, so on. And if you really want to bring change, then do it. But it's also do it where it brings the best version of yourself, like it's for the right reasons. It's, as going back to that path earlier, it's true to you. And also just be that best version that you can be, whether it's in work or personal. I think those what messages very early on, but have really stuck with me throughout the years.
Thanks, Jillian. It's really, really helpful. Anna.
So I think the best piece of advice that I have ever been given was that just because you're good at something doesn't mean that you have to do it. And this applies to many, many things, because very often in environments where there's lots of people involved, you get asked to do things just because you have done them before and you deliver well. But that is not a good enough reason to do them. You have to ask yourself, do I want to do this? Can somebody else do it? And why are they asking me? Is it just because I always say yes and I do it well, or because it's really me who has to do it? So think twice about what you're doing, and just because you're good at doing something doesn't mean that you have to do it.
Thank you, Anna. That's really powerful. And I have attempted to deploy that on the distribution of who does the ironing in the house. There is a very different outcome in terms of the quality of ironing, but yeah, sometimes that book is beckoning and the ironing has to take second place and someone else can do it. Madhuri, what's the best advice you've ever had?
Thank you, Tracy. My husband's going to be so pleased because I'm going to quote him. I had recently started doing the CBT course, and it was my first essay, and I got a C. I was crying and I said, that's it. I don't want to do this course. And my ego was hurt. I was hurt. I'm like, how can I get a C at this age? So he said, and when was that the goal? So this is just a step in between. Don't lose the sight of the main thing. You wanted to do it because you wanted to help people. So whether you help people after getting a C or whether you help people after getting an A, how does it matter? As long as you improve, as long as you keep doing what you're doing well, and as long as you take your learning from it. And then I realized, yes, the end goal is never these steps in between. And if we kind of get stuck on these little obstacles that we get in between and forget what we were actually aiming for, then we can get stuck so many times and we can leave the path. So that was a good advice, not to lose sight of the main goal and get over these little obstacles.
Thank you. Really, really good advice. And yeah, I think it is about making sure we're listening sometimes when we get that advice as well. It's really easy to get stuck in our own circular thinking occasionally. Tina, what's the best advice you've ever had, apart from my encouraging you to be rector, obviously?
You know, I was born in a place where they practice male child preference, which means if you are a daughter, you have no right to anything, including education. And I remember then my dad will say to me that you are a woman and you are a force for nature. And the only thing that can stop between you and whatever you want to achieve is yourself. So don't ever forget that. It doesn't matter what anyone says, it's what you want to do and how you get there. So that has influenced everything about me. So it's not about what people are saying, you're not good enough, you can do this, you can do that. It will only be that if you believe them. But if you think back to yourself to say, look, I can do this, even if it's just little steps, but I'll get there, you would. And that has guided me. That being a woman doesn't stop me from being good at something. It doesn't stop me from achieving. It doesn't stop me from thriving. It doesn't stop me from being the leader of a company, no matter what it says. So I think for me, that is what I have lived by. And I think my dad was right. Because despite all the stereotypes and biases we have where I come from, it hasn't stopped me from being me.
Thanks, Martina. I really appreciate that sharing. And I'm really recognise that a lot of this is quite close and personal, but I think that's where some of the strengths of mentoring and sharing these experiences comes from as well. We've got a question coming from the wider group with Elaine sort of commenting that mentors are often surprised to find that the benefits of mentoring are two-way in terms of also enabling the mentor's self-development. Would panel members like to share any unexpected but welcome outcomes they've experienced in terms of their own learning when mentoring? Anyone want to come in on that one? Who's looking as though they've got an answer to that? Gillian, would you like to come in? Any surprising but welcome?
I think when we mentor, we're giving a part of us in the process. It is personal. That's what mentoring is. You're sharing, you're supporting, you're encouraging, but it can't help be also a mirror, because we do learn from the mentee who is going on their own journey, but it's reflective. And usually we also have our own self-growth, whether it's just learning a new skill or better learning and listening and identifying a new way of doing something, or showing our capacity to greater enhance someone's life shows us another way. But I find mentoring hugely enriching. You know, mentoring and coaching is so rewarding for both partners in that partnership. You know, it's very honest and open and truthful when it's done right, and my goodness, what an impact it has. And I know I've grown as a person enormously from that.
Thanks, Gillian. And I think, Martina, did you want to come in on that as well?
Yes, I think Gillian has said it all. The other thing I wanted to add was I used to talk really, really fast, but the people I mentor have taught me how to talk very slowly, sometimes even how to count my words, because I have supported and mentored young people with varying needs, including additional support needs. And in those circumstances, they've taught me how to talk, how to listen, and how to be very, very patient. So I think, it's very rewarding. You learn a lot from them as much as you give a lot as well.
Thank you both. That's really, really reflective, I think, as we're considering all of the benefits that we get from mentoring and all of the things we put out there as part of that process of mentoring as well. One of the things that I often have experienced, and I'd be really interested to know whether you're in the same place, is that sense of sort of succumbing to imposter syndrome. You know, that sense of, every other morning someone is going to figure out I really don't have a Scoobies what it is I'm supposed to be doing. So I'd be really interested to know just how shared that sense of imposter syndrome is, and how much it's a factor in the sort of mentoring relationships that you have. Julia, would you like to come in first on that one?
You pulled me out there. Well, I am feeling the imposter syndrome a bit today, I have to be honest, because I have never been mentored nor been a mentor. So, but it's great to chat, and I really appreciate being here. I have had the imposter syndrome in my job. As I said, I went straight from university into my role, and I was giving students advice and guidance quite quickly on after I graduated, and I always felt like, I'm basically still a student. What role do I have here in terms of advising other students? And I would mention it to my colleagues, and they would say, well, Julia, you're in the role. This is your job. And I learned to trust them, and I trust that they picked the right person for the job. And over time, I've then learned to trust myself. So I think it is being honest and, saying to your colleagues, look, I'm struggling a bit, because a student comes in and they look at me and I'm probably 1 year older than them or the same age. And they said, yes, but you've got the backing of the career service and you're here as a representative of the university. So I think it is learning to trust, first of all, the others around you, and hopefully over time you then learn to trust yourself a bit more.
Thanks, Julia. Anna, have you got any reflections on this as well?
Yeah, I guess the imposter syndrome, from what I hear from my peers and from people that are a little bit further ahead in my career, it doesn't quite never disappear. I don't know if others agree or not. You just have to learn how to manage it. And what helps me is to maybe think about who is when sometimes I don't have a mentor physically in the same space. What helps me is kind of projecting into the person that I would usually go and talk to and ask the question and think, what would this mentor tell me if I was going with this fear and this, and I can already predict what they would say because I know the answer. So it helps me reassure myself that, well, that's okay. You're a little bit scared, but that's fine. You just keep going. And if you after doing that you're still scared, you can always go and ask somebody else to give you like a little pep talk that helps you push through.
Thanks, Anna. That's really positive and a really good coping technique. Because I think you're right. It's one of the things. I guess that's maybe part of growing. That if we don't, if we didn't have some of that, perhaps we wouldn't keep pushing to develop ourselves. And actually, there's a positive in there somewhere. Madhuri, do you want to come in?
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you, Tracey. I agree with everyone who have shared so far. And I would say that I do suffer from it as well, especially when people say calm, you're calm. I feel like a headless chicken in my head. So how can this be calm? But yeah, and what I often suggest to students when they come with imposter syndrome is do a thought challenging. So the thought is, I feel like I don't deserve this. And then I say, draw a line right on left side. What makes you say this? And then right on the right side, if someone else, say my kind friend or my mom or my professor or my tutor was to say, oh no, actually that's not true because, then write that because on the other side. And then look at both these sides and say, okay, so I feel that I don't deserve this because tuck, 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 tuck. And then actually it could be wrong because da, 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 da. And then my balanced version is perhaps I'm not as good as this person, but I'm doing reasonably well. So having a balanced version of your thought, and then it's not just a random irrational thought. You have checked the validity for it and you have a balanced version. So I keep telling myself that perhaps she's feeling this way because she's doing my facial and I'm looking very calm. That's why. But basically thought challenging is one of the keys. Thank you.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I wanted to move on a little bit, but Tina, did you want to come in on that one as well?
Yes, I just wanted to add that in everything everyone has said is valid, very valid. But one thing we haven't mentioned is that we human beings are our own worst ever critic. The voices in our head is so mean. And to add that onto everything that is happening around us tend to justify what we're already thinking. So perhaps maybe if we try to be a little bit kind to ourselves and say we are just still human after all, and we are still a work in progress. So maybe that can give us some reassurance to say, yes, we can move forward. We can believe in our abilities. We can perhaps commend ourselves a little and say, yes, we are doing well or we are awesome. So yeah, that's all I wanted to add.
Thanks, Martina. Really conscious that this is International Women's Day, so I wanted to sort of explore some gender-based questions around mentoring, and I wondered if any of you had felt that you've struggled because people have been making professional assumptions about you based on your gender, and what advice you might give to someone who faces this. And I know Tina's already touched on some of that, but useful just, I think, to share how widely we might be experiencing those kinds of things. Anna, would you like to come in on that one?
So I think that from my experience of mentoring, I'm not entirely sure I understood where you wanted me to go to the question, so I am going to interpret it my way unless you want to rephrase it. Okay, so the gender experience that I have had about mentoring is that I have been lucky to be part of a really big network of women that we mentor each other at different levels, and it's people that come from different, very different career stages, very different career trajectories. And what I have found is that even when we might have such a different background, we find a way to support each other, and we understand some of the struggles that we have already endured. So I often find the mentorship advice from women, regardless of their career stage or discipline, more relevant than the mentoring that some men had given me. Not always. I have had really good male mentors, but I find that for some of the struggles that I have, so for instance, let me put an example. I received very recently the program of a workshop on a topic that I work on, and is led by a professor. And all of the people talking in that panel are white privileged men. And they have not invited anybody that doesn't look like them. And I was very upset because it would have been good for me to be in that network, but I was not invited. So I have talked to a mentor that is a woman, and she helps me. And even if it was just to share the experience with them and they understood why I was upset, was helpful. When I shared it with somebody that was a male, they didn't understand why I was upset. So I think that sometimes that difference in gender comes from what you have been able to experience before or not, which also means that I am completely blind to struggles of people that have a different experience from me, which means that I might be well suited to help people that come from a background that is like mine, but I might not be super well suited or sensitive to people that are racialized and that I share no experiences with, because I might not be able to fully understand what they are struggling with, if you see what I mean. So sometimes targeting who you ask is very relevant to get the support you need.
Thanks, Anna. That's really insightful and absolutely right. You know, we're all looking at things through our own eyes, and it's really hard. We can understand where we've been individually disadvantaged, but standing in somebody else's shoes is really, really difficult to do. And we do need to ask those questions in order to get even close to that. Okay, Jillian, what about you? Have you ever suffered that professional assumption because of gender, and how do you deal with it?
I would say yes, but in terms of the mentorship itself, I found the most impactful mentored relationships I've had are the ones that haven't been assigned to me. They've naturally happened. And this has been having male and female mentors. So where there's been that connection, deeper understanding. So as Anna says, there's that natural connection rather than someone doesn't understand your background or where you're going or what you're wanting. I have been very lucky in terms of, so I worked for one of the big oil companies a few years ago, Schlumberger, and I had two fantastic mentors during that time, both male. At this particular period of time, I'm thinking in my head, and while Anna was speaking, I was like, why was that so good? I was trying to think, why was it so impactful? And it was because, one, they weren't assigned. They took time, both of us, to know each other on both occasions. And still to this day, I will call on either of those people to bounce ideas off, because it's become a long-term friendship. It's gone much deeper for work and personal. And this has spanned, nearly a couple of decades now. In terms of also the women mentors I've had, there's one in particular that jumps in my mind who worked for Tendeka, has now left, who is just phenomenal. Again, it's been through knowing each other, knowing the backgrounds, there's great common ground, but how she has supported and helped guided and been that sounding board. But I've also seen situations where it just doesn't work. And I am wondering if when it's here's a mentor for you, work forward, and therefore you're putting two people together, where's the common ground to show it was the right match? And I think that's what Anna was suggesting, and Anna, jump in if I'm wrong, but it's making sure there is that common ground to move forward. So I've definitely experienced good, I've seen not so good, and I say if anyone's wanting a mentor, make sure you have an input into that person, because if you get the right mentorship, it's so impactful.
Thank you, Gillian. And there's a huge amount in there, and I think some of that's about the difference as well between mentoring and coaching, where there's a much more sort of framed relationship. But absolutely right about the importance of that connection. I just wanted to push a little bit more around the assumptions on women and the need to balance a career with caring responsibilities, whether that's children or other families. And I know we're not all in those circumstances. But I was just wondering whether someone wanted to say a little bit about one, that pressure, but two, also how we might learn to manage it as effectively as we can. Madhuri, your thoughts on this one, those challenges and how we deal with them?
Yeah, I think I have faced challenges from both sides, being a mentor and being a mentee when you are working with someone who is not the same gender as you. And sometimes I think you have to give it time, because although we first see each other as male or female or they, but as the relationship of a mentor and mentee starts progressing, we start seeing each other as an individual and the bond starts forming. So sometimes if you I mean, that's what I would say to the younger people, that if you don't click with the mentor immediately, don't give up. Hang in there for a bit longer to see if it's taking time and if it's going to get any better. And remembering that it's people, finally, it's an individual, whether it's a man or a woman or anyone, still it's an individual, and frequencies do sometimes take a bit of time to match. I have been lucky to have mentors who have been really, really good and supportive. It's just with when I have had women as my mentors, they have been a bit more understanding. It's like they understand the things even without me saying it. Like one of my mentors used to sometimes get a soup for me when I was pregnant. I mean, that's just, it's such a little thing, but I would never forget because I couldn't eat, and that time it really mattered. So these little acts of kindness, and they can come from any gender. So challenges are there, but we should also be hopeful. Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. Wanting to explore a few broader areas, and I'm particularly interested in where we are with supporting women in science. And I was wondering whether Anna could share some some thoughts about what might be a particularly effective strategy in terms of achieving success in the field of science.
So I think within the group of women in academia, I'm probably very privileged, and I haven't faced many of the barriers that maybe others have had, because I am, again, I'm white and privileged. I don't have any children yet. I have strong opinions about what should happen, but are based on what I see, not on my own experience. So just take them with a pinch of salt. So I think the biggest barrier now for women in academia is when women have children, and that is where we see the hole in the pipeline. So I think that all of these events that we create to promote women in science, to push them to stay and everything like that is very good. But I think then the network disappears when they are having children. So I think there's very concrete things that could happen to support women and their careers. So for instance, one of the things that happens is that if you have children, for instance, your promotion, not your promotion, but your probation is extended for the amount of time that you have children, which means that you will promote later. That will mean that you will get the accumulated benefits later. And it might happen that you end up having two professors that have the same level when they finish, and they have half the pension when they retire. So if we want those things to change, we could supplement women who are away pensions, we could supplement childcare, we can make sure that they have resources to do research the moment they come back, whenever they decide to come back. We could provide them with a team that allows them to keep the research going while they are on maternity leave, if they choose to. But those things are not happening. What is happening is that they tell you, well, we extend the period for you, we'll wait for you. But waiting for us is not enough. It's not good enough, because we still see the leak. So I think we need some active measures to push women when they come back and while they are away on maternity leave. That is when we are losing them. But I can see how many people would be against those because they haven't been implemented yet.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting challenge. As I said, I was only off for 6 weeks, and some of that was very disconcerting to the individuals who I was working with. It was almost like I shouldn't have been allowed back, and that was an interesting dynamic in the organisation. But I think we do need to think about how we maintain connection during maternity leaves, I think, it's that fracturing that is something which is challenging. Okay, let's move on a little bit, and I'm wondering if you might want to reflect a little bit on how your education prepared you or not for the career that you're in. As I said, I started training to be a hotel manager because, coming from the background you did qualifications that got you a job as opposed to something you were interested in. So I'd be really interested to see what that experience of education brought, and if you have any reflections, what you might tell your teenage self in terms of that engagement with that education. Okay, let's see. Julia, do you want to start? You're closer to it than I am, definitely.
Okay, yes, no problem. In terms of, well, I think when I was at school, I remember someone in the year below me asking, oh, what A-level should I do, Julia, to get a job? And I said, you should do the ones that you're interested in, because I think, as Gillian said, if you're not passionate about something, you're not going to want to pursue it. So I loved the subjects I did at school, and I did well because I was really interested in that subject. So I think that's the first thing. If you're at school and you're not too sure what your final subject should be, what's going to get you that job, I think it's really important that you actually do something you're interested in. Coming to university, it sort of backfired slightly when I chose a degree in linguistics that I thought I was really interested in, and it actually turned out to be something that I didn't want to pursue afterwards. So I did have that moment of, oh, whoops, I've done this degree and I don't really know what to do now. But I did touch on at the beginning, I took opportunities that were offered to me at university. And if there's one thing I've learned whilst being at university and now working here, it's such a fantastic place to just gain experience in so many different vocations, but even just areas in terms of your societies, your extracurriculars, the people that you meet, the events that the university puts on. You know, it's a fantastic institution for education. So I think something I learned whilst doing my degree was actually to try different things. And I took so many courses that weren't to do with linguistics. I was doing a bit of sociology, philosophy, ancient history, because the university has that excellent, because it's 4 years, the first 2 years you can do a lot of electives that aren't to do with your degree. So that's what I would say, you know, pursue what you're interested in, but also use the opportunities that are given to you to gain a bit of experience going forwards. And hopefully then obviously things will come together. But as I said, knowing what you don't want to do is just as important as knowing what you do want to do. So hopefully that's answered the question in a sound way.
Thank you. That's great. Gillian, any thoughts from your perspective?
I think I would just add as well, I don't think when you're at school or at university, you should be thinking, this is my career for life. As in, open up your mind. It might be your career for 5 years, it could be 10 years. You may be lucky and you love it right till retirement. But I think especially when I was at school, everything was about what's your career, what's it going to be for life, make a decision now. You're so young. And although the generations before were lucky, you hear of people in employment with even the same company for 35 years plus, that's not the norm. So instead it'd be like, what do you see as this first chapter in your career journey? That's how I speak to my niece as well, because she's studying at university just now, and I'm like, you don't need to be looking way ahead. And that just goes back to what the other mentors have said today. Just break it down into, what do I really want to do just now? What do I love? What do I plan for? And also, as I said right at the outset, I'm a great believer in lifelong learning. Yes, I've studied a few degrees, but there's been other courses and interests, and I'm all for just learning new skills. One that might take you on another path, and that's great. Otherwise, it's just about development and being, learning and being that better version. But don't close off the idea to new opportunities. The academia world is wonderful. It helps equip us, but life is also a lesson in itself. You don't get told how to really manage some major obstacles that may come down the line. It could even be the big things like bereavement and relationship problems and everything that folk are going to go through in their life. There's other aspects that we need to be learning about. But in terms of academia learning, it's been phenomenal. I did first study publishing. I went into journalism. I was a sub-editor. I changed, really wanted to get into marketing more so instead of just journalism. I did my master's. It has led me on a path, but I've continued to learn in many other ways, hence why I have evolved in my career as well.
Thank you, Jillian. Really good advice, I think. I'm going to ask the panel one more question, and we'll move to a poll after that as we come towards the end of our session. So the question I want to pose to each of the members in the panel is, what's your tip for making sure we make time for ourselves to help that work-life balance? Okay, so let's start with Martina.
That's a very interesting question. I think essentially is not trying to do everything today, because that's where we have tomorrow. So plan to do the things that cannot wait today, and don't fail to delegate where possible. Don't feel shy to ask for help. That's very important, because if you have people helping you to do some things, then you can focus on the ones that can only be done by you and free up some time that you can do other extracurricular activities and things that make you relax, so that you're not just focusing on work and no play. So, and I think that's what leads me, and so far, I think it has worked. So delegation, assigning tasks where possible, asking for help, and don't try to finish everything in one day, because the to-do list never really gets finished.
Thanks, Martina. Julia, your tip?
So mine's a bit more practical. I'm fortunate that I can walk to work. It is just down King Street, but it's still about 25 minutes. And when the pandemic hit, I really, really missed my commute in the morning. And I know a lot of people were very pleased they didn't have to commute, but that walk in the morning really, really set me up for work. So I ended up walking up and down the beach every morning. And it's just about getting a bit of fresh air, being outside. The movement, I think, was really helpful, especially when working from home and you're sitting down a lot. And I'm fortunate to be back in the office now, but do still sit down quite a bit. And I think that having that walk in the morning, for me, that's when I can process things. I get my best ideas when I'm walking. I put a podcast in sometimes, or sometimes I just, think about the day ahead, and actually having that physical momentum on my way to work and then on my way home, it really, really helped me to get ready for the day and then get ready for coming home. And even just that physical distance between having the office and my house, and obviously during work from home, having the physical right round the block. When I come back, it's office space. End of the day, going around the block, come back, that's my home space. So for me, that physical distance was really important.
Thanks, Julian. Really have lots of resonance with that boundary thing. I had real difficulty working from my bedroom. Just really couldn't get my head around it. Okay, yeah. Gillian, what's your tip?
Mine is to learn what really energizes you again. If we all have mobile phones, we are so attuned to seeing the batteries at 100%, 50%, 25%, and we start panicking if we're seeing it lower. You know, where's the charger? Can't go out the house, can't go out for the day. But yet we're not attuned to how we are. And sometimes it can build and build and build until we are depleted of our energy. And that's when overwhelm and other health conditions can kick in. So if we can all learn just whatever it is for you, and you know you're at, say, 30% or so of your battery, what can you do to start energizing again? Because it's really important. Life's fast, life's busy, it's noisy. So what can you do to take care that way? Keep your battery charged.
Thanks, Gillian. Really positive. And I remember running across campus yesterday because the laptop was about to go off, but absolutely get the point. Anna, your tip.
For me, I would suggest that it's very tempting to work 5 minutes more, 10 minutes more, 20 minutes more, and when you realize you're working 5 hours more. And so what I try to do, and I'm proud to be achieving so far, is to be ruthless with the time boundaries that I have for work. I start at 9 and I finish at 5. I am very focused when I work, and I'm very executive in the way that I handle my schedule and the interactions that I have with people. But at 5, I close my computer and I don't have my email in my phone. My private life and my work life are completely different regions. And I try not to let my work steal part of my private time, because if I make that boundary more blurry, I feel like it starts eating out, and I think I have to be ruthless so it doesn't happen, and that helps me.
Thanks, Anna. That's really insightful, and I might not quite achieve that, but that's something to work on. And last but not least, Madhuri, you want to give us a tip?
I think it's what everyone else has said. I completely agree, and I have tried some of those. And I would say that the only other thing I would add is making it a priority. So balancing my work life and my family life is a priority for me, and reminding myself that it's a priority. I need to do something about it. And I get it done mostly by just spending some quiet time with myself, literally with a pen and paper, and thinking, so what is it that I need to do for myself or to balance? And then why have I not been doing it? So where was my time spent last week? So I would say reflect, plan, implement, and reflect. That's what I tend to do. And the other thing that has helped me is avoiding multitasking. So trying to do this while I do that, and trying to do that while I do this, I get messed up with both. So doing things exclusively has been one of the things that has helped me to balance it, because then I feel I'm fully present doing this, and then I'm fully present doing that. So like Anna said, that I also tend to kind of maintain my boundaries really tight and try not to mix up both. And the last thing is letting go of perfectionist tendency, because if I go on about making it perfect before I finish, then I would never finish. So it's okay for now. That's what I tell myself. Thank you.
Thank you. A real rich set of advice in there. I'm going to ask the team to throw up our final short poll, and that's really to ask each of you just how you would describe your experience today. One word answer, but choose any word, preferably polite, that you like. Thank you. some really positive words in there. So thank you very much for sharing that. And I can see they're still coming in, but motivational, insightful, thoughtful, intriguing. I see we have humbling and helpful in the chat as well. So a real richness of the conversation, I think, being reflected, and good to see reassuring in there as well and encouraging. So really nice to see those responses. So thank you for that. I'm conscious that we are now reaching the end of our session today, and we'll need to move to close the event in the next few minutes. But just before we do that, I really wanted to thank Martina, Gillian, Julia, Anna and Madhuri for their open and very honest reflections, which I think we've all found really, really positive. I want to thank those of you who've joined us for your engagement, for questions that have come in, and from your engagement with the polls. I think the desire that we all have that underpin this conversation is about breaking the bias in society, the theme for International Women's Day this year. And I just want to reinforce that, you know, we are here, we have the opportunity to reach out to each other and to support each other in moving that forward. And my final thanks go to the team who've supported this event. It's never as straightforward. The technology is wonderful when it works, but there's always the odd glitch. So thank you so much for the organisation, for supporting the technology, and for making this happen today. Please feel free to tag us in any social posts going that you want to comment on with hashtag IWD ABDN, and we look forward to seeing you at some of the other events and at International Women's Day next year, when hopefully we'll all be back in person. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.